We don't get what we want in life, friend. The reality is we get what we expect. We don't get what we want in life. We get what we expect. How many want a better life? How many want a better relationship? How many want their children to do better in school? How many want to get that promotion, bonus, or raise? How many people want that? Almost always. Almost always. Every hand goes up. In a live session one time, I asked a question to the audience. I think it was like 100, 150 people in the audience. And I said, hey, listen, let me ask you a question. How many of you want to work? How many of you want to win the lottery? 100% participation. Every hand went up. People want to win the lottery. And at the time, the lottery was almost $1 billion at that time. And then I asked the next question. How many of you went out and participated by buying a ticket? A small percentage of the hands went up. And usually it's like 2 or 3% of the people in the audience when I ask that question. So you mean to tell me there were 100 people, let's just use that as an example. There's 100 people in the audience. Out of 100 people, all 100 people said they want to win the lottery, but only 3 people bought a ticket. Why did only 3 people? Why did only 3% out of 97%, out of 100 people, why did only 3 people buy a ticket? Because the 3 people that purchased a ticket, they moved beyond just wanting to win, and they purchased an opportunity to win. So they had an expectation that led them to act a certain way. And that's why I say you don't get what you want in life, you get what you expect in life. And so I'm always encouraging people to look at the reason why, or the motive, or the thoughts behind the things that you do. When was the last time you interrogated a thought that came your way? When was the last time you sat down and you said, you know what, why do I think this way? Why do I think this way about food? Why do I think this way about exercising? Why do I think this way about relationship? Why do I think this way about my career, bonus, promotion, and raises? Oftentimes you'll find that thought is attached to something someone said to you, maybe a negative or an emotional experience. Now, friend, understand this. I am not a licensed psychologist. I'm not a licensed therapist. I'm just simply speaking from experience that I've had and having conversations with other individuals. You don't get what you want in life, you get what you expect. And our expectations, I said this on an earlier broadcast, our expectations are hidden in the rhythm of our thinking. What does it mean to have a rhythm of our thinking? Now, mental health experts have proven that there are about 90%, let me back up. So mental health experts said that we think anywhere between 60 to 70,000 thoughts a day. 60 to 70,000 thoughts a day. Mental health expert told us. We think from 60 to 70,000 thoughts a day. And 90% of those thoughts are automatic. 90% of the thoughts are automatic. So 60 to 70,000 thoughts a day, about 90% of those thoughts are automatic. So that means that about 10%, 5 or 6,000 or so thoughts, we are intentionally thinking. So our expectations are hidden in the rhythm of our thinking. So we have to look at what's the rhythm of our thinking. How do you find rhythm? Rhythm is tested and tried over time. You find the rhythm by listening to something over and over again. You find the rhythm by observing something over and over again. And what you will find, in my experience, what you will find is there's a rhythm to our thinking. If you get a compliment, someone says your hair looked nice today. And if you say, oh, thank you, this old thing, or if you think, oh, why didn't it look nice yesterday? Was my hair jacked up yesterday? Right? Or when you hear a compliment about your clothing, you downgrade your clothing. Hey, man, that suit looks nice. Oh, man, I had this suit for 3 years. Why did you say that? Why did you have the comment or thought about the suit? Why did you have the comment or thought of when someone compliments your hair? To me, that's the rhythm of your thinking. Somewhere in the rhythm of your thinking, there may be a thought that says, I really don't like myself, or I don't deserve a compliment. I'm just saying, friend. So we have to dig down, we have to get deep, and we have to look at, why do I think the way that I think? Because the way that I think is going to determine the way that I act. And the way that I consistently act is going to develop a habit, and habit sets the course for our lives. The way that I think, the way that I think is going to determine the way I feel. And the way that I feel is going to determine the way that I act. And the way that I act consistently is going to develop a habit. And that habit is going to determine the course of my life. Now, you can change the course of your life, but where do we start first? You start by changing the way that you think. And see, friend, if you and I can get better, can think better on the inside, and then we will start to produce better on the outside. Because here is a fact. What I hold in my mind, I will eventually hold in my hand. What I hold in my mind, I will eventually hold in my hand. So I have to spend time interrogating my thoughts. Richard, why do you think that way? Here are questions that I ask myself. How do I want to be seen? Right? How do I want to be seen? How do other people think? How do I want to be seen? How do other people see me? How do I want to be seen? And what do I have to do and say to become the person that I want to be seen as? For example, if you want to be seen as a person that is successful, then you have to start looking at, what do I have to say and do to be seen as a person that's successful? Now, friends, success starts on the inside. Success isn't measured by the number of assets. Success is measured by the internal thoughts, the healthy thoughts and emotions that we have about the state of our life. When in business consulting and working with companies, here's what I discovered, that people leave people long before they leave an organization. People will leave people long before they leave an organization. If you have a boss, a supervisor, a person that's over you, and they are just emotionally low, their emotional IQ is low, and they are abusive and they're not very positive, people leave that person. Even if they like the job, they will leave that person long before they leave a company. So as a leader, you and I have responsibilities in terms of what type of healthy thoughts and emotion we have for ourselves, and then what type of healthy thoughts and emotion that we have towards other people, towards our team that we're leading. Does that make sense? So we have to interrogate our thinking, because our expectations in life are hidden in the rhythm of our thinking. We have to go to the next level with our thinking, and we're doing this self-evaluation. Why, how do I want to be seen? How do other people see me? How would I like to be seen? And what do I have to do? What do I have to do in order to be seen as the person that I want to be seen as? Now, let me preface that question with this. I'm assuming that the person that you want to be seen as is a person that you inwardly, healthy look at yourself. You want to be seen, right? No one wants to be seen as a loser. No one wants to be seen as a failure. No one wants to be seen as a person who doesn't know. I don't believe anyone genuinely wants to be seen as a loser. But we have to evaluate, where did that come from? Sometimes it's a result of a traumatic experience. Sometimes it's a thought. Let me share my story. A long time ago, at the beginning of my career, I was on an apprenticeship program, and it was a 4-year apprenticeship program, 8,000 hours, and I had to go through 5 levels of math. I had to take trig, I had to take geometry, right? I had to take beginners, intermediate, and advanced blueprint reading. It was to become a CNC operator, machinist for a company. And so I remember during my apprenticeship, about 2.5 years into my apprenticeship, I felt as though I was doing good, and it was time for an evaluation with the particular department that I was doing my internship in. And so the supervisor at the end of the shift called me into the office, and I was expecting the supervisor to say something like, "Rich, we thought, we can't imagine operating this company without you." I'm expecting to hear that, right? I'm expecting to hear something like, "Man, we're going to increase your salary. You've been such a blessing. You've been beneficial. You're this." That's what I was expecting to hear when it was time for the evaluation. However, the supervisor said, Rich, you seem to be the most incompetent person I've ever met. Now, I'm sure in that interview, that evaluation process, that there were some positive things mentioned. But friend, listen, the only thing I focused in on was incompetent, incompetent, incompetent. That hit me like a sharp, hot knife at the core of my being. I tuned out everything and I just zeroed in on that incompetent, incompetent, incompetent. I remember going home, sitting on my basement steps, and I cried for like 2.5 hours. I was devastated. As a young man, I've never had anyone say that you are incompetent. Now, years later, I had an opportunity to look back because that was a trauma to me. That was trauma. That was a traumatic experience in my life. And I look back on that situation and I realized what was so damaging about those words is that those words connected to a belief system I had at the core of my life. In the core of who I was at that time, I had a thought, a belief system that said that I was incompetent, incompetent, incompetent. And it was connected to things I heard as a young man growing up. So I couldn't fault, looking back on the situation, can't really fault the supervisor that said you seem to be the most incompetent person. What I had to look at is, why did that word incompetent affect me the way that it did? So I had to do some self-reflection. I had to take a look in. Why did that word impact me? And the second thing I had to do, discover to do, is how to overcome this thought, how to overcome this traumatic experience. And how I overcame it was I had to get positive words to erase that. I had to take that thought and replace it with a positive thought. I had to be intentional. I had to be intentional about thinking the right kind of thoughts about my life. And so one phrase that helped me during that time period was I started to say, information is the difference between success and failure. Information is the difference between success and failure. As a matter of fact, leaving that experience, I went back to school a few years later. And when I went back to school, that thought of incompetency, it tried to come back into my life. It tried to come back up as I went back to school to get a degree in business administration. So what I did was 7:30 in the morning when I went to school, I went to the library. Up on the chalkboard, I wrote, information is the difference between success and failure. And I would just sit there. And for like 5 or 10 minutes before the start of my day, I focused on information is the difference between success and failure, because I realized that you're going to overcome being incompetent. You got to have information. And when you get information is going to lead to you being a person of value. And when you become a person of value, then people are going to invite you into certain rooms and conversations. Am I making sense? So I had to interrogate that thought, incompetent. Why did I feel the way that I feel? And then I had to intentionally replace, I don't feel incompetent, I have information. I'm not incompetent, I'm confident. You see what I'm saying? And how do you become confident in something? You become confident in any area of life. From practice, you got to practice, drill, and rehearse. How do you become competent? It's easy. You practice, drill, and rehearse. How do I become competent in my marriage? I practice, I drill, and rehearse. Wait a minute, bro. What do you mean you practice, drill, and rehearse in your marriage? How do you practice, drill, and rehearse in your marriage? Well, listen, let me throw this back at you. You're already practicing right now. I know if I say this to my wife, she's going to say this. I know if I say this to my husband, he's going to say this. You're already practicing their response. You're practicing conversations in your head. If I say this, they're going to say this, so I'm going to say this, right? If you get into a disagreement, my wife and I, we don't have arguments. We have heated fellowships. We have heated fellowship, right? We have disagreement. But listen, how do you become competent? Practice, drill, and rehearse. Do you know that it's been said that the difference between an amateur and a professional is that an amateur practices until they get it right. A professional will practice until they can't get it wrong. That's a different mindset. Practice, drill, and rehearse. That's how you become competent. You practice, drill, and rehearse. And when you practice, drill, and rehearse, you become competent, confident, and you sound natural. When you practice, drill, and rehearse, you become confident, competent, and you sound natural. So expectations are hidden in the rhythm of our thinking. And we drill down and we look at, what are my expectations as it relates to success? What are my expectations as it relates to my marriage? What are my expectations as it relates to my family? And when you drill down and you to the core of your thinking, you'll find out what's behind those expectations. And if it's good, you build on it. If it's not good, you intentionally replace it. I could no longer think that I don't deserve success. I think I do deserve success. I stopped thinking I don't deserve having this type of success. I don't deserve to live a six-figure lifestyle. No, I deserve to have success in my life. I deserve to live a six-figure lifestyle. It's not bragging, friend. I have added the value to my life with internal thinking. I got information. And now I'm sharing that value with the world through service.
How we think, because the way that we think matters in life. Listen, understand this, friend, that we don't see the world as it is. We see the world through the lens of our experiences. So we don't really see the world as it is. We see the world as we are, if that makes sense. And so we want to go through so the way that we think and processing thoughts and having what are right thoughts and wrong thoughts, and how do I build a healthy thought life. And also, professionally, that May is mental health awareness. And I am going to reach out to some of our mental health friends and see if I get some mental health experts or therapists on this call to be a part of this conversation, because the way that we think matters. I wrote this down a few months ago when we were doing a show on vision, and I wrote this down, and I said expectations are hidden in the rhythm of our thinking. Expectations are hidden in the rhythm of our thinking. Expectations are hidden in the rhythm of our thinking. So that phrase came after a phrase that I said just prior to that, and that phrase that led up to expectations are in the rhythm of our thinking, is that we don't get what we want in life, we get what we expect in life. We don't get what we want in life, we get what we expect in life. So if I want a better marriage, then I have to look at what are my expectations for my marriage. If I want a better career or success in my career, then I have to drill down and go below the surface and take a look, what really are my expectations as relates to my career. So our expectations are hidden, right, in the rhythm of our thinking. So if expectations are hidden in the rhythm of our thinking, then it makes sense for us to have a conversation on the power of thinking. There's a book out by Napoleon Hill called Think and Grow Rich. I took it literally because my name is Rich Williams, and I said think and grow rich. I made it personal. So the way that a person, when I say man, I mean mankind, but the way that a person thinks has a lot to do with the way that they live. Look at your life right now. Look at whatever is presently in your life. Whatever is presently in your life, it is the result of the way that you thought, the way that you acted, and what you believed in the past. Whatever is presently in my life, it is a result of the way that I thought, felt, and acted. Whatever is presently in our lives, it is a result of the way that we thought, the way that we felt, and the way that we acted, inconsistent with the way that we thought and we felt. Understand this, some thoughts aren't yours. Some thoughts you don't have to take ownership over. If a thought hits my head, and sometimes this thought hits my head, you don't deserve success. You don't deserve a six-figure lifestyle. Sometimes that thought hits my head. Guess what I do? I realize and recognize that's not a thought that's for me. That's not for me to take ownership on. That's not for me to embrace. My name is Richard P. Williams Jr. The P stands for Paul. Now you know my full name, Richard Paul Williams Jr. I was having a conversation with the person, And someone said, hey, you call me by my whole government name. They refer to it as a government name. Then I asked them, did the government name you or did your parents? My parents. So how is it a government name? Okay, I digress slightly, but you get the point of what I'm saying, that whatever is presently in my life, friend, whatever is presently in my life, it is the result of the way that I thought, the way that I felt, and how I acted in line with the way that I thought and felt. Now, you can change the way that you think. You can change the way that you feel. Let me say this. You can change the way that you feel. You can change the way that you act by simply changing the way that you think. So I'm saying, I'm repeating this because I want this to sink into you, right? So the way that I think and feel and behave, it's in my life today. So when I look around me and I don't like what I see, I don't like my environment, then I got to take a close look at the way that I think, feel, and how I'm acting. Now, I am not making an excuse for a person that may be in some type of abusive relationship. In no way am I alluding to saying that relationship, that abusive relationship, that you deserve. That's far from what I'm saying right now. Right? I am not saying that right now. But what I am saying is I have to take a look at the way that I think and feel and how I act and as it relates to the way that I think and feel. Now, I read a scripture in the Bible, 3 John, verse 2, Beloved, I wish above all things that you prosper, be in health, even as your soul prosper. Beloved, right? The Apostle John is writing in 3 John, verse 2, Beloved, I wish above all things that you prosper, be in good health, even as your soul prosper. So what that does for me, it says, Beloved, I wish above all things that you prosper, be in good health. And it says, even as your soul prospers. So my lifestyle, my environment that I live in, the level of my success, the level of my experiences, right? It is not going to go beyond, or my increase is not going to go beyond the limitations, the ceilings, or the status of my soul. I have to be healthy emotionally. I have to be healthy in my thinking, right? And as I work on becoming better on the inside first, on the outside, I become bigger. You got to become better on the inside so that you become bigger, or people around you make a demand that you become bigger on the outside. So what does it mean to think right? So thinking right simply means that I understand that there is a process, right? Thinking right simply means that I understand that there is a healthy way of thinking, right? It means focusing on good and not dwelling on the bad. That's thinking right. When we think positively, we attract positive outcomes and experiences in life. We attract positive outcome and situations in life. So that means that I got to make a decision now. I have to make a decision now to choose to think positively. Some thoughts, friend, that come your way, some thoughts that come my way, they are not for you. They are not for me. Some thoughts that come your way. At Thanksgiving and Christmas, it happens to me. I don't know if it happens in your home. My wife will cook a wonderful meal, spread it out, and I feel like I can eat everything that's on that table, man. Everything that's on the table. I feel like I can eat everything on the table. It's just a feeling. And that thought is not for me because I can't eat everything that's on the table. So now think about this. One way to think positively, to start framing the way that we think, is having an attitude of gratitude. I am thankful and grateful for, and you express whatever it is that you want, right? Shift our attention. Shift our attention. Shift your attention from problems and onto good things. Now, again, I'm not making light of someone that unfortunately may be in a challenging, bad situation. Listen. You could be in a bad employment situation. You could be working for a boss who doesn't understand the value of emotional intelligence, and he or she it doesn't display empathy and is self-centered and self-serving. That's not a situation that I'm going to focus my attention and time on. I've been in situations where bosses, managers, owners that I've worked that I reported to weren't very emotionally intelligent, right? And so now I make a choice. Is this the right environment for me? But so by shifting my thinking and not focusing in on how horrible my job is, on how horrible the boss is, I'm going to find something to be thankful for. So you got to have an attitude of gratitude, right? Get a gratitude journal. Something as simple as this, where you can write in it every day when you get up certain things that you're thankful for. And when I wake up in the morning, before my feet hit the floor, I go through a process of thanksgiving. I first thank God that I have life and breath in my body. I thank God that I woke up to a home that's peaceful. I'm thanking him for it. I'm thanking him that I have a beautiful wife and a marriage of almost 34 years, and we've been together for 35 and a half years, right? I'm thankful that I have, my children are healthy, and they're progressive, and they're innovative, and they're creative, and they're doing well in the job market. See, I start my day with an attitude of gratitude. So then throughout the day, when life happens, and let me tell you something, friend, life doesn't care about you. Life doesn't care about me. When I say life, I'm talking about the unfortunate things that happen in life. It's going to show up. It's not if, it's when it shows up. That was one time I had a coworker come into work and they was like, they was like complaining, got up on the wrong side of the bed. I'm like, go home and get up on the other side of the bed and then come back, right? That we're focusing in on how we should think. Another way to think positively is by visualizing your success. Go to the end of December. Go to the end of this year, December 31st, 2023. What does it look like? Visualize you accomplishing your goals. Visualize the thing that you want. You gotta verbalize, internalize, visualize until it materialize. You gotta verbalize, internalize, right? Visualize until it materializes. But you got to have a vision for your success. What does success look like for you? I'm not talking about assets and money. I'm talking about just in our thinking. Beloved, I wish above all things that you prosper, be in good health, even as your soul prospers, your intellect, your emotions, all that. Is it prospering? Are you healthy in your thinking? Create a sense of excitement and motivation. Vision creates a sense of excitement and motivation. Vision moves us forward. Vision is forward. It's forward progression towards a worthy goal and or an idea. It's also important to understand that we need to surround ourselves with positive influences. Who's in your village? Who's your village? There's an African proverb that says it takes a village to raise a child. Who's in your village, right? Who are the people that are applauding you? Who are the people that are cheering you on? You can do it. You can make it, friend. Sometimes you have to get away from people that have your problems, and you got to hang with people that have your answers. Pastor Mike, the senior pastor of Spirit of Faith Christian Center, which is now Faith Central City. I'm so excited for the name change. Listen, if you're within a 300-mile radius, if you are within a 300-mile radius of the DC metro area, man, listen, I want you to be my special guest and come on in and join me at church. And we have an 8 a.m. service in Temple Hills, Maryland. We have a 10 a.m. service in Brandywine, Maryland. And we, at the same time, we have a 10 a.m. service in the Baltimore, Maryland area. So come by and check us out. But Pastor Mike says you got to get away from people that have your problems. You got to hang with people that have your answers. So finally, friend, by focusing on positively, practicing gratitude, visualizing success, surrounding ourselves with positive influences, friend, we can change our mindset and we can begin to attract positive outcomes into our life. The Bible says, as a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. So we got to look at the way that we think. We got to look at the way that we feel, and then we got to check our actions.